Tom was not a hero. He was not a soldier, a commander, or a famous explorer. He was just a technician who fixed things: wires, circuits, oxygen pumps, food processors, anything that kept a ship running. That morning, he was expecting another dull shift on the deep space survey vessel Silver Path. The Silver Path had been assigned to scan an uncharted system near the edge of human-mapped space. Most planets were barren rocks or frozen spheres, but one small moon caught the science officer's attention. It had an artificial signal, faint but steady, coming from a large structure on its surface. When the captain asked for volunteers to check it out, most of the crew looked away. Strange signals on a deserted moon were never a good sign, but the signal was old, and the scans showed no life signs. Finally, the captain ordered a small team to investigate. Tom was included because the structure might have damaged equipment. That needed analysis. The shuttle ride was silent. The other two crew members, Pilot Mira and Security Officer Ben, kept their thoughts to themselves. The moon's surface was gray and cracked, covered in fine dust that clung to their boots. The building was huge, shaped like a dome, with sharp towers rising from its sides. Its walls were dark metal with glowing blue lines, like veins of light, running through stone. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. The walls were covered in strange markings, curved shapes that looked almost like music notes. The floor was smooth, and their footsteps echoed softly. "We split up," Ben said, checking his scanner. "Stay on comms. Call if you see anything." Tom didn't argue. He walked down a narrow hallway, following a soft humming sound. The deeper he went, the stronger the sound became until it seemed to be inside his head. The hallway opened into a massive chamber. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The ceiling arched high above, painted with swirling patterns that shifted like clouds. At the far end stood a throne, tall, silver, and shaped like the wings of some giant insect, and sitting on the throne was someone. She was tall, taller than any human woman Tom had met. Her skin had a faint shimmer, like polished stone in moonlight. Her face was narrow, with high cheekbones, and her eyes were unlike anything human. Not two, but many, set in a graceful pattern that seemed both alien and beautiful. She wore armor that looked more ceremonial than practical, with long flowing strands that moved like living silk. Tom froze. His first thought was that she might be a hologram, some old AI projection, but then her head turned, and all her eyes locked on him. A voice spoke, not from her mouth but directly into his mind. The tone was deep and smooth, like a slow river. "Are you unattached, human?" Tom's mouth went dry. He opened his comms. Mira? Ben? I think I found something. Or someone." No reply. His comms showed static. The voice came again, warmer this time. "Do you not understand my question?" Tom swallowed. "Unattached? Do you mean single?" Her eyes blinked in a slow, deliberate pattern. "Your people's words are strange. I ask if you have no bond, no chosen one of your kind." Tom shifted uncomfortably. I don't know." The alien queen rose from her throne with slow grace. She moved like a predator, calm, but with the sense that she could strike faster than he could blink. "Then you are available." Tom stepped back. "Available for what?" She tilted her head. "For the trial." His heart pounded. "Trial? Look, I think there's a misunderstanding. I'm just here to check equipment." But she had already descended the steps, each one ringing softly under her armored boots. She stopped a short distance from him, studying his face as if reading more than just his expression. "You entered this place alone. That is rare for your kind. You did not flee when you saw me. That is rarer still. The signs are clear. The choice has been made," Tom raised his hands. Choice? I didn't choose anything. I just walked in here. A faint smile touched her lips, though her eyes remained unreadable. Fate chooses, not you. Before Tom could reply, the walls of the chamber shifted. Panels slid open, revealing tall figures, in dark armor, her guards. They carried weapons shaped like spears, but the tips glowed with pale energy. They formed a circle around him, not threatening, but making it clear he wasn't leaving. Tom's mind raced. He wasn't a diplomat. He wasn't trained for first contact beyond the standard rules. Be polite, don't make sudden moves, avoid offense. But here he was, face to face with an alien ruler who was speaking as if she was considering him for something far more personal than he wanted to think about. The Queen's voice flowed into his thoughts again. Your name, human? Tom, he said automatically. Tom, she repeated, tasting the word as if it were strange fruit. You will remain here as my guest. There are matters to discuss before the choosing. Choosing of what? Tom asked. She did not answer. Instead, she turned and began walking back to her throne. Her guards moved, two stepping behind him, and gently but firmly guiding him toward a side passage. The hum in the walls seemed louder now, almost like a heartbeat. Tom glanced over his shoulder one last time. The alien queen had seated herself again, watching him leave with all her eyes. Her expression was calm, but there was something else there too. Interest. The door slid shut behind him. He didn't know what the trial was. He didn't know what unattached meant in her culture. He didn't even know if he would see Mira and Ben again. All he knew was that his quiet technician's life had just turned into something far stranger than he could have imagined. And somewhere deep inside, past the fear and confusion, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was only the beginning. Tom was led down a long, curved hallway by two of the Queen's guards. Their armor was smooth and dark, with faint blue light running along the edges. They did not speak, but their presence was heavy, as if every step was a silent reminder that he was in their power. The passage ended in a room with high walls and a soft glow coming from crystal-like panels set into the ceiling. There was a long table in the center with strange fruit-like objects and tall vessels filled with a pale liquid. One of the guards gestured toward the table. Sit. Tom hesitated. Look, I think there's a misunderstanding. I came here with... The guard's head tilted slightly, and his many-eyed face remained unreadable. Sit, he repeated, softer but with the weight of command. Tom sat. The other guard stepped to the side and tapped a small device on the wall. The doorway sealed shut with a smooth hiss. Moments later, the Queen entered. She moved without sound, her long ceremonial strands trailing behind her like flowing banners. Tom noticed that even here, in what seemed like a dining chamber, she carried herself like a ruler addressing her court. She stopped across the table from him and studied his face again. You are troubled. That's one way to put it, Tom replied. You asked if I was unattached. Where I come from, that's a personal question. The Queen tilted her head slightly. In my people's tongue, the word is Kareth Von. It means without chosen bond. It is not simply personal. It is a matter of leadership, of alliance, of future. Tom frowned. Alliance? She sat, her long fingers resting lightly on the table. The Threva choose rulers not only for strength or wisdom, but for the bonds they form. A ruler without a chosen one is seen as incomplete. My council wishes me to choose a partner from among the noble houses. I do not wish this. Tom shifted in his seat. So you want someone else instead? Her eyes blinked in slow sequence. I wish for someone who is not tied to the greed of our courts, Someone whose loyalty is not bought by land or title. Someone who stands apart. "Like me?" Tom asked, half in disbelief. "Like you," she said without hesitation. He leaned back. "But I'm just a technician. I'm not a leader. I'm not—" "You are unbound. You walked into the heart of my court alone. You looked upon me and did not bow or beg. That is rare among my kind. It means your spirit is not bent by fear or by tradition." Tom rubbed the back of his neck. Or maybe I was just too shocked to react? The Queen's expression didn't change, but her voice carried a hint of amusement. Even so, he looked around the room, then back at her. "So what is this trial you mentioned?" She leaned forward slightly. "The trial is the Kareshtai. It is the proving of worth. 3 tests: skill, wisdom, and courage. If you pass, I may choose you. If you fail, you will be returned to your ship." Tom blinked. "Returned, as in, alive?" The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "The trials are not meant to kill. They are meant to reveal. But you will find them challenging." He sighed. "Why me? You could have anyone from your own people." Her voice grew softer, but her eyes stayed locked on his. "Because fate sent you, and I do not ignore fate." There was a long silence. Tom could feel the weight of her gaze, as if she were measuring every thought that passed through his mind. Finally, he said, "What if I say no?" The Queen's head tilted again. "Then you will be escorted back to your ship. But the rival who seeks my throne will know that I refused fate's choice. That would strengthen his claim and weaken my people's future. You would leave, but the shadow you cast here would remain." Tom hated the way that sounded. He didn't want to get involved in alien politics. He wanted to fix equipment, drink his recycled coffee, and go home. But he also didn't like the idea of leaving. Someone to fight a battle they might lose because of him. He ran a hand over his face. "If I do this trial and I pass, what happens then?" The Queen's eyes softened, just a little. "Then you will stand beside me as chosen. It will not mean you must remain here forever. It will mean you are a part of something greater, an alliance between our kinds." Tom let out a long breath. "This is a lot to process." "I will give you until the next cycle to decide," the Queen said. She stood, her presence filling the room like the slow rise of a tide. "Food and rest are here. My guards will remain outside. No harm will come to you within these walls." She turned and walked to the door. As it slid open, she paused and looked back. "When I asked if you were unattached, human, it was not simply a question. It was an opening of a path. Few are given such paths. Fewer still dare to walk them." The door closed behind her, leaving Tom alone in the softly lit chamber. He stared at the strange fruit on the table, but didn't touch it. His thoughts were too loud, too tangled. Mira and Ben were somewhere in this station, unless they'd already gone back to the ship. His comms were still dead, and the guards outside didn't look like the talkative type. He thought about her. Words. "Fate sent you." He didn't believe in fate, but he did believe in choices. And right now, he had a big one to make. Outside, far down the hall, he could hear the faint hum again. That same sound he'd heard when first entering the throne room. It seemed to pulse in the air, steady and unending, like the heartbeat of the station itself. Tom lay back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. He had until the next cycle to decide, but he already knew that no matter how much he wanted to, keep his life simple. Something inside him was leaning toward the path she had offered, the path that began with a single, strange question. "Are you unattached, human?" The next cycle came faster than Tom expected. He had not slept well. The alien bed was too soft, and the constant low hum of the station made it hard for him to relax. His thoughts kept returning to the Queen's words. 3 trials. Fate. Chosen. When the door finally opened, the same two guards stepped in. "Come," one said. They led him through a wide corridor lined with tall crystal columns that glowed from within. Tom noticed that the guards were tense today, their steps faster, their eyes shifting as if they were expecting trouble. The throne room was different from the day before. Now it was filled with tall figures wearing layered robes, each decorated, with patterns of gold and silver. They stood in small groups, speaking in low voices, but when Tom entered, the room fell silent. Many eyes, far more than any human could have, turned toward him. The queen sat upon her throne, calm and straight-backed. Her eyes met his, and she gave a slight nod for him to approach. Tom stepped forward, trying to walk with more confidence than he felt. The silence pressed on him until he stopped at the base of the steps. A voice broke the stillness. "So this is the unbound human." Tom turned. A tall Thrava male stepped from the crowd. His armor was dark and polished, with sharp edges that caught the light. His eyes were colder than the queen's, and his voice carried a tone that made the hairs on Tom's neck stand. "This is Lord Veyron," the queen said evenly. "He is of the High Council. High Council and rightful claimant to the throne," Veyron added, not taking his eyes off Tom. "We live in dangerous times. The queen must choose a partner to strengthen her rule, yet instead of one of our own nobles, she brings before us this." The word "this" landed like a stone in water, sending ripples of murmurs through the room. Tom kept his mouth shut. He was no politician, and he had no idea how to respond without making things worse. The queen's voice was cool but firm. "The council will remember that the choice of partner is mine to make. The trials will decide his worth." Veyron stepped closer. "If he survives them, you risk our stability by trusting fate over tradition. Do you think the people will follow a queen who bonds with an off-worlder?" "They will follow a queen who leads," she replied. Veyron's eyes narrowed. "We shall see." He turned to Tom. "Enjoy your time in the palace, human. It will be short." With that, he moved back into the crowd, his followers closing around him like shadows. The queen rose from her throne and gestured for Tom to follow her through a side doorway. The guards fell in behind them, blocking the view of the rest of the court. The side hall was quieter, but Tom could still feel the tension clinging to the air. "I take it he's the rival you mentioned," Tom said. "Yes," the queen answered. "Veyron seeks power through fear and force. He would unite the Thrava by making war on neighboring worlds. Your kind would be among his first targets." Tom frowned. "And me standing here somehow makes your position stronger?" Her many eyes shifted toward him. "If you pass the trials, yes, the people will see the bond as a sign of alliance with a new and unpredictable power. It will make my rule harder to challenge. And if I fail, then Veyron will claim fate has spoken against me." She looked ahead, her voice steady. "That is why you must succeed." They stopped before a tall archway guarded by two more soldiers. Beyond it, Tom could see a round chamber with strange floating shapes slowly turning in the air. "This is the Hall of Memory," the queen said. "Here, you will prepare for the first trial. But before you do, you must understand." The court, she led him inside. The floating shapes shifted to form images. Scenes of grand halls, great feasts, and battles fought in the void of space. "The council is divided," she explained. "Some believe in the old ways, binding through noble bloodlines. Others believe in change, in reaching beyond our stars for new strength. Your presence has already shifted the balance, but it has also made you a target." Tom rubbed his temples. "So not only do I have to pass some mystery trials, I also have to avoid getting stabbed in the back by your political enemies." A faint smile touched her lips. "Yes, you learn quickly." He sighed. And Mira and Ben? Are they safe? They are aboard your ship, she said. I had them returned before the council could interfere. Only you remain. That information was both a relief and a worry. At least they weren't in danger here. But it also meant he was well and truly alone. The Queen gestured toward one of the floating shapes, which turned into an image of a maze-like structure made of shifting walls. Your first trial will test skill. You must reach the center before the path closes. The walls will move and there will be obstacles. Tom stared at the image. Obstacles? You will see, she said simply. They left the Hall of Memory and returned to a smaller chamber with a wide balcony that looked out over the alien city. From this height, Tom could see towers of silver metal rising into the pale sky, with bridges linking them like webs of light. Ships moved slowly above, their shapes long and curved like living creatures. The Queen stood beside him. Do you fear what comes? Tom thought about lying, but there didn't seem to be a point. Yes. I'm not trained for this. I fix things. I'm not a warrior. Her voice was quiet. Skill is not only for warriors. Sometimes the mind is sharper than the blade. He glanced at her. You sound like you believe I can do this. I do. Tom took a deep breath. The view was beautiful, almost peaceful, but he knew it hid a storm. The Queen's court was divided, her rival was watching for weakness, and now his own life was tangled in their politics. The trial would begin soon, and whether he liked it or not, Tom was now a piece on the board, one that both sides seemed eager to control. The morning of the first trial came with a pale light spilling through the tall crystal windows of Tom's guest chamber. He barely slept. His mind kept replaying the image he had seen in the Hall of Memory, the maze with moving walls. When the guards arrived, they said nothing, only motioned for him to follow. The walk was long, through spiraling hallways and towering doorways. At last, they reached a great open arena beneath a dome that glowed faintly from within. The Queen was already there, standing with her council. Lord Veyron stood beside her, his dark armor gleaming, his expression sharp and unreadable. Several robed elders watched from a raised platform. In the center of the arena, a wide circular floor waited. Strange patterns were carved into it, and small crystal spires jutted upward in random spots. Around the edge of the floor, large metal panels were set into the ground. This is the Koresh Maze. The Queen's voice echoed through the space. The first trial. When it begins, the floor will shift. Walls will rise and fall. Paths will open and close. You must reach the heart before the way is sealed. If you do, you pass. Tom stepped forward. And if I don't, Veyron smiled faintly, then you go back to your ship and your people, and the Queen will have failed her destiny. The Queen ignored him. Your time begins when the first wall rises. Tom took a breath and stepped onto the circular floor. It was cold under his dasher boots. A deep hum filled the air. Then, with a sharp hiss, tall walls began rising from the panels in the ground, forming twisting corridors around him. The maze was alive, shifting, and locking into new shapes. Tom moved quickly, turning right at the first corner. The walls were smooth metal, too tall to climb, and they made the space feel narrow. He tried to remember the patterns he had seen. In the Hall of Memory, the maze's design had changed, but some shapes were familiar. A dead end. The wall in front of him slid up, revealing another passage, but behind him another wall dropped, sealing his way back. The maze was closing paths faster than he expected. Okay, he muttered. Think, Tom. Don't panic. He spotted a thin seam in one wall, a panel about to move. He waited, and when it slid upward, he darted through before it could drop. Again. The floor beneath his feet shifted slightly. A section ahead began to rise, forming a slope that led to an upper level. He scrambled up, nearly slipping on the smooth metal. From this height, he could see more of the maze and the glowing spire at its center. "That's where I need to go," he whispered. The walls moved again, cutting off a direct route. He realized that if he kept chasing open paths, he'd be trapped in circles. He needed to think ahead, watch the patterns, and move toward openings before they appeared. He slowed his pace, letting the walls shift while he observed. The maze was not random. There was a rhythm to it, like the steady beat of the station's hum. When he spotted a panel that would open in the right direction, he moved fast. He darted through, then slipped sideways into another path just before. The wall dropped again. From the platform above, the Queen's eyes followed his progress. The council murmured among themselves. Veyron's expression tightened as Tom avoided another dead end with a quick turn. Halfway to the center, Tom found the first real obstacle, a section of the maze where the floor itself moved. Panels tilted, forcing him to keep his balance as the path shifted under his boots. He crouched low, using his hands to steady himself until the floor leveled out again. "Not so bad," he muttered, though his heart was pounding. The walls closed behind him with a heavy clang. He was locked into a narrow path that seemed to spiral inward. The hum grew louder, and he realized this section was moving toward the center, but also slowly sealing from above. "Great," he said. "Now it's a race." He ran, dodging, falling panels that dropped like doors in front of him. One almost clipped his shoulder. He slid under the next, just as it slammed down, the sound ringing in his ears. Finally, the last panel dropped behind him, and he found himself in a wide, circular chamber at the heart of the maze. The glowing spire stood before him, humming with soft light. "Touch the heart to end the trial," the Queen's voice echoed. Tom stepped forward and pressed his hand against the warm surface of the spire. The light flared brighter, and the maze walls began to sink back into the floor. When the arena was clear again, Tom stood alone in the center. The Queen descended from the platform, her many eyes steady on him. "You passed," she said simply. The elders murmured again, some nodding in approval. Veyron said nothing, but his gaze was sharp and calculating. Tom tried to hide his heavy breathing. That was harder than it looked. "The first trial is always a test of focus," the Queen said. "You did not rush blindly. You watched, you learned, and you moved with purpose. That is skill." He gave a tired smile. Glad. It worked. But inside, Tom knew this was only the beginning. There were still 2 more trials, wisdom and courage, and neither would be as simple as finding his way through a moving maze. Still, as he left the arena with the Queen at his side, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't before. Not confidence exactly, but the sense that maybe, just maybe, he could do this. From the shadows of the court, Veyron watched him go. His expression was unreadable, but his thoughts were not kind. The political storm was far from over, and Tom's part in it was only getting more dangerous. The day after the maze trial, Tom was given a small chamber to rest in. It was quiet, but he could feel the tension in the air. Guards walked the halls more often, their movements sharper, their eyes scanning every shadow. Something was brewing. He sat by the tall crystal window, looking out at the alien city. The towers shimmered in the pale sunlight, but there was a strange stillness. The ships above moved slower than before, and he saw groups of armed soldiers patrolling the sky bridges. Tom had learned enough to know that in the Queen's court, silence often meant danger. The door opened, and one of her trusted guards stepped in. "The Queen requests you in the council chamber," he said. Tom followed, his mind uneasy. When they reached the council chamber, the Queen was there, speaking in low tones to an elder. She looked up when he entered, and there was something in her eyes. Not fear exactly, but a readiness for something she had expected. "We do not have much time," she said. "Veyran moves against us." Tom frowned. "Moves? You mean—" Before he could finish, the sound of a deep alarm shook the room. The crystals along the walls shifted from soft white to a pulsing red. The guard turned sharply toward the door. "Breach in the outer hall!" The Queen's voice was firm. "He has chosen to act before the second trial. He seeks to end this now." The chamber doors burst open. Figures in dark armor poured in, their weapons glowing with pale energy. The Queen's guards formed a line in front of her, blocking the attackers. "Stay close to me," the Queen told Tom, drawing a curved blade from the folds of her ceremonial robe. It was not just for show. The way she held it showed training and purpose. The clash was loud and fast. The Queen's guards met the intruders with precise strikes, but Veyran's forces were many. Tom ducked behind a crystal pillar as energy. Bolts flashed through the air. Veyran himself stepped into the room, his voice carrying above the chaos. "End this foolish path, my Queen. Choose a Threva warrior, not this outsider." The Queen's reply was sharp. "I choose my own fate." Veyran's eyes narrowed. "Then you choose war." The Queen gave a signal to her guard captain. "To the tunnels." The captain moved toward Tom and grabbed his arm. "Come! Now!" Tom didn't argue. They moved quickly through a side doorway, the Queen just behind them. The corridor beyond was dim, the walls narrower, the air cooler. "These tunnels lead to the old sections of the palace," the Queen explained as they ran. "Veyran's forces will not know them well." They passed through twisting paths, descending, deeper beneath the palace. The sound of battle above echoed faintly through the walls. Tom tried to catch his breath. What's his plan? If he wins here, what then? The Queen's voice was steady even as she moved quickly. He will take the throne by force. He will claim my bond with you was an insult to tradition and that only his rule can restore order. Then he will prepare for war beyond our world. They reached a heavy metal door. The guard captain pressed his palm to a panel, and it slid, open to reveal a wider chamber filled with old machinery and control stations covered in dust. "This is the old command hub," the Queen said. "Long before my reign, it controlled the outer defenses." Tom looked at the dark consoles, their surfaces covered with alien symbols. "Does it still work?" The Queen glanced at him. "It has not been used in many cycles, but you are a technician, are you not?" He stepped forward, brushing dust away from the nearest console. The systems looked strange, but familiar enough for him to guess their function. "Maybe, if the power's still connected." The Queen moved to another console and touched a control. A faint hum began to rise, and lights flickered across the panels. Tom smiled faintly. "Good. That's a start." He worked quickly, tracing lines of alien script and connecting the meaning to human systems he knew. It wasn't perfect, but his instincts told him which controls were for defense shields and which were for weapon systems. The guard captain stood watch by the door. "We don't have much time," he warned. Tom found the right sequence and activated it. A deep vibration ran through the floor, and on the Queen's console, a display lit up showing the palace and its surrounding city. Rings of light spread outward, marking the activation of defensive barriers. The Queen's eyes softened slightly. "You've done it." Tom didn't have time to feel proud. The sound of running footsteps echoed in the tunnel outside. Veyran's voice rang out from beyond the door. "You cannot hide forever!" The Queen stepped toward the console and activated another control. Above them, in the distant sky, the palace's outer towers glowed as ancient shield generators came to life. Veyran's voice turned sharper. "So, you found the old defenses. They will not save you from me." The guard captain glanced at the Queen. "We must move to the inner escape route." She nodded. "Tom, with me." They slipped out through another side passage just as the outer door shuddered under a heavy blow. The tunnel curved upward, and after several turns, they emerged into a hidden balcony high on the side of the palace. From here, Tom could see the glow of the activated shields stretching over the city like a giant dome. The Queen stood beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon. "You have bought us time. Enough to prepare for what comes next." Tom swallowed hard. "And what comes next?" She looked at him, all her eyes focused and calm. "The second trial, wisdom. And this time, Veyran will not wait for the result. He will try to break you before it ends." Tom stared out at the shimmering shield. He had survived a moving maze, escaped an armed attack, and activated alien defenses he barely understood. But the next step, whatever it was, felt like it would test far more than just skill or quick thinking. The throne room was no longer the quiet place Tom had first entered. Now it was a battlefield. The great crystal pillars were cracked and shattered, and the floor was scarred from the energy blasts that had lit the fight. The Queen stood near, her throne, her spear glowing bright and steady. Around her, loyal guards formed a circle, holding the line against the rival soldiers. Tom stood beside her, his heart pounding but his mind clear. Outside the palace, the alien city was under attack. Ships streaked across the sky, firing beams of energy that lit the clouds. The outer defenses were strong, but they would not hold forever. Veyran's forces had come for the final battle. They wanted the throne, the power, and the future of the Threva. And they saw Tom as the weak link, the human outsider who did not belong. The Queen looked at Tom with all her many eyes. "This is the moment. The last trial awaits, not of skill or wisdom, but courage." Tom nodded. "I'm ready." A sudden explosion rocked the room as the rivals' warriors broke through the outer wall. Shouts filled the air, and the fight grew fierce. Tom moved with the Queen's guards, dodging blasts and striking when he could. Suddenly the Queen shouted, "To the center! We must protect the heart of the palace!" They pushed forward to a raised platform where a glowing orb floated, a source of power for the entire station. Losing it would mean losing everything. The Queen placed a hand on the orb and the light flared. "You must protect me while I call the ancient bond," she said. "This will bind you to my people and our fate." Tom's breath caught. "What does that mean for me?" "Once bound, you share our strength, but the choice must be yours." Veyran's voice echoed through the hall. "Give up, Queen. Your human friend will fall, and so will you." Tom clenched his fists. "Not today." The battle pressed close. Tom fought with every ounce of courage he had, blocking attacks and protecting the Queen as she spoke in the ancient tongue. The light around the orb grew brighter, wrapping them both in a soft glow. Suddenly, a surge of energy rushed through Tom's body, warm, powerful, and strange. His vision sharpened. He could feel the strength of the Threva flowing through him, but then came the hardest choice. The bond would tie his life to the Queen's. If she died, so would he. His old life, his safe return home, would be gone. Tom looked into her eyes, full of hope and trust. "I choose to stand with you." The Queen smiled gently. "Then we are one." The light spread, wrapping them in a web of energy that pulsed with life. Outside, the rivals' forces faltered as the palace defenses flared to full power. Veyran realized his defeat and made one last desperate strike, but Tom and the Queen stood firm. Together, they drove the attackers back. When the battle ended, the palace was quiet again. The Queen looked at Tom with gratitude. "You have passed all the trials." Tom smiled tiredly. "It was not easy. But I learned something. Sometimes being unattached means you can choose your own path." She nodded. "And you chose well. From that day forward, Tom was not just a human visitor. He was a symbol of hope, a bridge between two worlds. And when the alien queen saw him again, she asked the same question. But this time, it was not a test, but a promise. The heavy air inside the tunnel seemed to press down on Tom's shoulders as he followed the queen. The walls were covered with faint glowing lines, showing the way deeper into the heart of the alien station. He could hear distant echoes, footsteps, shouts, and the hiss of strange weapons far above. Somewhere above them, the rivals' forces were breaking into the palace halls. The queen moved with quiet grace, even in such danger. Her tall form ducked under low arches, and her many eyes scanned every corner for threats. Tom stayed close, holding the small toolkit he had carried since leaving his ship. He didn't know what they would face ahead, but something in his gut told him he would need every bit of skill he had. After a long climb down a spiraling ramp, the tunnel opened into a massive circular chamber. In the center stood a control platform surrounded by tall, curved panels. Dust hung in the air, and the faint smell of metal and age filled Tom's nose. "This is the core of the station," the queen said, her voice calm but urgent. "It has not been used for many cycles. My people do not remember all its secrets. But our ancestors built this place as both a palace and a fortress." Tom walked forward, brushing a layer of dust from one of the panels. Strange, alien symbols glowed faintly under his touch. His fingers traced the edges, feeling for seams and connections. "This isn't just decoration," he murmured. "These are circuits, old, but still alive." The queen watched him closely. "Can you make them wake again?" He took a deep breath. "I can try. But if I guess wrong, I could cause a system overload. And from the looks of these conduits, that could mean an explosion." She stepped closer. "You have already faced more danger today than most of my guards. I trust your hands." That gave him a strange kind of courage. Pulling a small scanner from his belt, Tom began mapping the hidden wiring under the panels. The shapes were unfamiliar, but he recognized patterns: energy regulators, control nodes, and relay channels. Whoever built this had thought like an engineer, even if their style was alien. As he worked, the queen paced, her long cloak brushing the dusty floor. Now and then, her gaze shifted to the tunnel they had entered from, as if expecting enemy soldiers to appear at any moment. Tom found a narrow slot hidden in the main console. "Looks like they had a manual override," he said. "If I can bypass the power lock, I might be able to bring the whole defense grid online." The queen stepped beside him. "Do it!" His hands moved quickly, sliding a thin tool into the slot and gently working the inner latch. A faint hum filled the chamber. Lights flickered along the walls, and deep within the station, something old began to stir. The panels lit up one by one, casting the room in a pale blue glow. Lines of alien script scrolled across the largest screen. Tom squinted at them, slowly matching their shapes to what little he'd learned of the Threva language. "It's asking for an access seal," he said. "Something like a password." The queen stepped forward, placing her hand on the center panel. Her palm spread across a pattern of glowing circles. A deep tone resonated, and the script changed. "Identity confirmed," Tom read aloud. "System unlocked." The chamber trembled, slightly as ancient machinery roared back to life. Outside, faint booms echoed through the tunnels. The queen looked at him, a glint of pride in her eyes. "The outer defenses are awakening. Our enemies will find the palace less easy to take now." Tom gave a small smile, but it faded as the screen flashed a warning. "They're already inside, the outer ring. These defenses will slow them down, but they won't stop them completely. If we want to hold this place, we'll have to fight them here." The queen did not hesitate. "Then we will fight. And you, human, will stand with me?" Tom's first instinct was to refuse. This wasn't his war. He could slip away, return to his ship, and be gone before the fighting reached this deep. But he thought of the Queen's calm gaze in the throne room, the way she had shielded him when the rival's guards first attacked. He thought of the people above, loyal to her, who might die if the palace fell. He met her eyes. "Yes, I'll stay." Her voice softened. "Then you are not just my guest. You are my ally." They moved quickly. The Queen activated a communication, linked to her loyal guards still holding the inner halls. Her voice was sharp and commanding as she gave orders. Tom helped reroute energy from unused systems to strengthen the shield doors and power the defense turrets hidden in the walls. Minutes later, the first of the rival's troops reached the inner passage outside the control chamber. Tom heard the heavy clang of their boots and the hiss of alien weapons charging. The Queen drew a long ceremonial spear from her back, its blade glowing faintly with energy. The door shuddered under the first impact. Tom tapped the panel beside him. "Shields holding. For now." The Queen took position at the front, her tall form framed by the blue glow of the chamber. "When they come through," she said quietly, "we will give them a battle they will remember." The door cracked open, and the fight began. Blasts of energy lit the chamber as the rivals' soldiers poured in. The Queen moved like a living storm, her spear striking with precision. Tom stayed behind the console, activating traps and turret fire in the corridors. When an enemy tried to flank them, Tom swung a heavy metal bar, knocking the soldier backward. Into a wall, the battle raged for what felt like hours. The sound of clashing weapons, shouts, and the hum of machinery filled the air. Slowly, the attackers began to fall back, retreating toward the tunnels. Tom's heart pounded as the last soldier fled. The chamber was silent except for the hum of the ancient systems. The Queen lowered her spear and turned to him. "You could have left, yet you stayed." He gave a tired smile. "Guess I'm not good at walking away from people who need help." She looked at him for a long moment. "Then perhaps my question, the first I asked you, was not so strange after all?" Before he could reply, her communicator buzzed with urgent news. The rival's main force was regrouping for another attack. The Queen's eyes hardened, but her voice was calm. "Then the true battle is about to begin." And Tom knew, without any doubt, that the next choice he made could decide the fate of an entire world.